What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the lesson of last week that was about philosophy. Okay, I decided to do that because philosophy nowadays, today, in 2022, I think is really cool, and I think it's just basically something that we discuss about. It's just like present in our lives. But when I think about philosophy in the past, like what kind of a relationship I had with philosophy was completely different. And I understood that my students had exactly the same relationship. It was like a boring class. They didn't want to study. We don't understand why we study it. Teachers, they want to look like philosophers, I think, and they want us to read a bunch of books and authors and talk about philosophy, and we don't understand what they're talking about. And the questions, they are too philosophical, and we don't understand them. We can't really apply it to our normal life. Philosophy is basically the opposite of that. Philosophy is present in every single little thing that we do, every decision that you make, the way that we live our lives. All of that can be made better through philosophy. And I didn't understand that until recently. So I decided to make this class to kind of break this idea maybe that we have about philosophy and have a meaningful conversation with my students, because philosophy is a big part of our lives. So that's why we did that last week. So during my class, I started giving us the general definition of what is philosophy, so we can really align this concept of it's not what we studied in the past. It's not what teachers told us to think about and read in the past. It's something different. So we started saying that philosophy basically is the study of general and fundamental questions. And these questions can be about existence, about your values, about your mind, your language. A lot of people say, it's our mind is what we think. A lot of my students said that philosophy is what we think, is the way that we think, which is great. And we also discussed that how these questions are normally presented as a problem, as a situation, and then how this situation can be solved in the best way possible. Like, what values do you use? What kind of mindset do you use? What approach do you have? And that's philosophy. What approach are you going to use? That's philosophy. What's the best approach in this situation? What's the right thing to do? What's the best thing to do? That's philosophy. So we started just by clarifying that this is the definition that we're going to use in the class. So later on, we just started talking about the great philosophers of our time, and my students told me some examples that we have here. Brazilian philosophers that we have, that they watch on YouTube, listen to podcasts on Spotify, follow on social media, something like that. Very cool to see. A lot of my students gave me 2 or 3 examples, basically the same. And it was very cool to see that people are consuming this kind of content. Maybe not the vast majority of Brazilians, but people around us in our circle, they certainly are consuming philosophy. So that's very good to know. But I chose 3 philosophers from the past. So I chose Socrates, which is like the founder of our philosophy, Western philosophy. And then I talked about Plato, and then Aristotle. Socrates taught Plato, and Plato taught Aristotle. And Aristotle, that was just a curiosity, was actually the tutor of Alexander the Great, the great military general that created a very big, vast empire. So we decided to talk about them, and I selected one lesson from each one of these 3 philosophers. So Socrates had the lesson of the 3 sieves, or the 3 filters. The 3 sieves, that before you talk about something, before you share, express something out in the world, you should think, is this true? Absolutely true. Is this positive? Is this good for us to talk about? And is it necessary? So if you pass these 3 sieves, these 3 filters, then you go ahead and share that. And we discussed how social media is basically the opposite of that. Fake news, negative things, and a lot of the time is just unnecessary things. The second lesson we talked about was from Plato. Plato was talking about being angry, that being angry is a waste of time. There are two things we shouldn't be angry at: what we can solve and what we cannot solve. If you can solve it, don't be angry, just focus on the solution. If you cannot solve it, forget about it, it's out of your hands. So why being angry? So we talked a little bit about emotional intelligence, what makes us angry, if it helps us solve problems or not. The last one was from Aristotle, and fuck, I forgot about it. It was like 4 or 5 days ago. Look at that. Aristotle had the last, oh fuck, yeah, criticism. For you to receive criticism from other people. So Aristotle was saying that people are just naturally different because they had different life experiences, they have different personalities, they learned different lessons, and they see the world in their own perspective. So people are naturally different. So when you do something, say something, basically you will encounter, you will find people that are critics of your actions, behavior, or principles, whatever, because people are different. That's just a natural thing for humans. So you should embrace criticism, you should accept it well, receive it well, criticism. And then we discussed a little how well people receive criticism, and that's one of the things that most of my students said: I don't receive it well, I don't like criticism, and that's something that I need to work on. And that's true also for me. So that was very cool to see that of the 3 lessons, this is the one that people need more work on. And that was it. So I just wanted to give this different concept about philosophy to my students and to myself. Talk a little bit about the big philosopher, great philosophers that we had in the past, the lessons that they taught. And it is very, very cool to see how these guys from the past, from thousands of years ago, they were teaching lessons that are the same lessons that are taught nowadays. They are exactly the same lessons, which is good. You know, it's good to see modern studies, modern philosophy, philosophers, scientists, professors, with new research about the brain, research about happiness, research about society and civilization and development, equality, whatever you want to talk about. They do these researches and they find exactly the same answers and teachings and lessons that philosophers found hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago. So we don't need all the new stuff, okay? We have a lot of wisdom